question, where'd all my resin beads go? So I did find them. I'm going to break some of those out so you can see them. A friend of mine had done a bunch of polymer clay work and passed along a bunch of these to me, so at some point this is all going to become bead stock as well. We're not quite there yet. These are all things that we have already resined into beads. And so a lot of this was learning how to play with mica powders and learning how to play with resin inks, with alcohol inks. So you can see that there's been a lot of trial attempts. Some colors work out, some colors don't. This was an attempt at robin's egg blue. You can tell it's not quite there yet. I'm not sure what color this was an attempt at, but it looks like black at the moment. Not as successful. I thought these little yellow ones came out pretty good. Those were neat. I liked those. These little pink ones turned out pretty good. So some of these will definitely get turned into something. Some of them won't. This was an attempt at brown. We're having a real hard time with brown. The mica powders aren't quite reaching brown. The alcohol inks aren't quite achieving it. So again, it's more trial and error. But one of my favorite things to do with resin, let's see if I can find it. I know it's here somewhere. I acquired this little device, and this device is a way of pressing flowers in the microwave. The reason that you want to press flowers if you're going to put them in resin is that when you put a live flower into resin, the resin sucks all the moisture out of the flower, and with it goes most of the color in the flower. And so when you do that, what you get are these really hideous yellow things that are just really not all that attractive, and really not something anybody wants to, see. I am really enjoying the inclusion of flowers in resin and liking the botanical look of that. So there's an example there. It's a little yellow flower there. And so we're working with some teeny tiny flowers. I don't remember which flower that is, but you can see that it's kind of purple. Look at that. Trying to get the camera to focus on it, a whole nother thing. Oh, well, hopefully the camera's doing its best. And let's see, is this one of the clovers? No, but that's a little flower with a yellow center and white petals. And so all of these were dried in the microwave using this thing and then put into resin so that you've got these really pretty botanical resin casts, and they are my favorite thing to do, even more than playing with the colors and the inks and all that. There's a little yellow flower. Come on. Camera focus. There we go. That's the best the camera's going to do for me today. And let's see. Yeah, that might be one of the original casts that didn't work out. Yeah, I don't know. Wasn't so happy with that one. What have we got here? That one did okay. Another tiny little flower though. Look at that. Yeah, so these are definitely my favorite thing to do, is to cast tiny little flowers. But again, it's a multi-step process. You got to find these flowers, you got to put them through the microwave to dry them so the color stays fast. Then you got to include them in the resin, and then you got to turn them into stitch markers. So I know a lot of it seems like it would be really, really easy, but you're talking a multi-day process on a couple of these things. Anyway, let me take you down to the resin room. We'll show you guys what that looks like. So I've been staying with some friends of mine, and they have, let's call this a multi-purpose room. We've got some exercise equipment, we've got all kinds of storage of all kinds of things, more exercise equipment. Some of you might think this is a garage, but you would be wrong. No, it can function as a garage, it just doesn't. because right now it's an exercise room and a storage unit and the resin room. Dun, 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 dun. All right, let's go check that out. So this is where my friend and I have been hanging out in the evenings. Yeah, some people might think this is a workbench. Yeah, it's a resin room. So you can see my friend's got some projects going on here, things that she's working on. And I've got some beadcraft going on right over here. And so let's take a look at what all this looks like. So for those of you who aren't craft minded, this is probably just a jumble of what the heck are you people doing? This is a drying lamp for UV resins like this one that dry under ultraviolet light. These are mixing cups. You have to mix the resin in that 2 equal parts. So you put some A resin in there, some B resin in there, dump them both into here so that you've measured everything and you mix it right. And most of the rest of this are tools. We've got a lot of tools up in this box. We've got a lot of molds down in that box. Over in this box is where the glitter and the scissors live at. We've got some alcohol inks over here and some mica powders over there. And we've got some UV resin and some UV resin and some mold conditioner and some 2-part resins over there and some more 2-part resin over there. We've got aprons so that when we're doing this, we don't get stuff all over us. We've got fans right there, and the second fan's inside charging. So that we can blow fumes out of this room so we don't get high while we're working on all the resin projects. And you can see that I've got some stuff right now drying in the molds. Now, they've probably dried long enough that I can probably unmold them. These are the ones I was actively working on, trying to fix some color problems. Like I said, brown's been a challenge. So this is an attempt at brown. The orange that I did was too dark, so this is an attempt at a lighter orange. The blue that I did was too dark, so this is an attempt at a lighter color of blue. We'll see what happens. And then sometimes I end up with extra resin that I don't know what to do with it, and so I pour it into other molds. And some of the resins that I had left over ended up in this mold. So let's uncant one of these, decant one of them so you can see it. And so you pour this liquid resin in and then it hardens overnight. And this is the new orange that I was working on. It's got a little bit of mica powder in it, and I think a little bit of resin ink as well. So it came out a nice sparkly orange color. This is a chocolate mold, typically is what you would mold in here. And so this is a chocolate bar. I think that's what they're aiming for. This one is an ice cream mold, and I think this was red that I was trying. It might have been a different pink. Not sure. Not sure what color I was going for here, but that was some over pour on it. This was more of that orange. I thought, hey, I don't know what this pie mold looks like yet. Ooh, look at that. That's an exciting mold. That might even be cake mold. That might be a slice of cake. I think that's a slice of cake, not a slice of pie. It's a slice of 3-layered cake at that. Alright, so now I have a piece of orange cake. Not sure what to do with that exactly. But yeah, so that's how you do these resins. You mix the parts together, you add in the things you're going to add in, then you pop them out of the molds, and if you're lucky, the molds already have holes drilled in them. Now, none of these particular molds do, because like I said, these are sold as chocolate molds, so they don't come with the pre-drilled holes already. You can see that some of them, like this one here, that little peg right there, ensures that you have a hole all ready for jewelry findings to go in once you pull this out of the mold. So that's that. I like these molds that have the pegs already in them, because it makes the process of turning them into beads so much easier. But as you can see, the mold has multiple different types of shapes, which is great if you're making pendants and you don't want them all to look the same. But what's nice about the chocolate molds is that I can run 6 or 7 or 5 or 4 of a given shape and do multiple colors, or I could do them all the same color and make a match. So the chocolate molds are nicer for that, and they're the size scale that I want to work in. So that's a lot of what's going on in Resin Land. Now, if you remember those beads that I showed you that had the flowers captured in them, they were made on molds like this. So you can see that they're not very deep at all. And that's why we're using 10, because they're not very deep, and they're not super, super big. And I like that. I was looking for not big. But what I want to do is take that same flower concept that was done in this kind of mold, and I want to do it in this kind of mold. Now, this is a mold specifically for the purpose of making beads. Get that up sideways. And so this mold is a 3-dimensional mold, and you can see from the side there and the back that the epoxy resin goes down inside that form, and you can see the center post that's going to make the bead hole. And so what I'd like to do is get to a point where I can get, probably with tweezers, where I can take a pair of tweezers like these and put some flowers right down into these cavities and try and get some dried flowers down in here, and then pour some resin around it so that I actually have a more 3-dimensional bead shape with the dried flowers down inside it. And then you can see I can make 6 of a given bead shape all at one time. So that's kind of how that process works. The resin that's easiest to put in these is the UV resin. However, it dries differently than the overnight cure does, and when you try to do a UV resin in these molds, what happens is you get a nice hard outer crust with a creamy liquid center, which is really not what you want in your resin product at all. You don't want a creamy resin center. So we have to do the overnight cure on these, otherwise it's just a failure. And I don't want to show you the whole process of mixing the resin and putting the inclusions in it and all of that, because it would just take entirely too much time. This is usually a hour to 2 hour process of coming out here and getting everything mixed and the colors just right and the inclusions put in it, plus the extra time to harvest the flowers and dry them in the microwave. So these are cool things that will be coming down the road to an Etsy channel near you. And as promised, here's a view of my friend's front yard. It is a wildlife habitat, and we've got some pride flags sprouting up. And there's a fairy neighborhood with some fairy toadstools and some fairy shell ponds and a bird fountain full of pebbles for the crows, I guess, and some bird feeders and more bird feeders and even more bird feeders. There are also some pretty flowers and some pretty butterflies, all of which are fake, but still add a lovely shot of color to the front yard. And the mums are real. There's also some more larger pride flags and a Black Lives Matter flag. It's a very fun yard to spend time in.